so much for joining us. My name is Cathy C Ostrowski, and I am the Department Administrator for Biomedical Engineering. Biomedical Engineering is a department that actually rolls up to both Michigan Medicine and the College of Engineering.
Oh.
And I am so thrilled today to be the facilitator for what I think is going to be the awesome all-star panel of folks, not just at Michigan, but from Michigan State, to explore all the skills and sort of elements to building your own career and working through a good journey in the world of research administration. We think that this panel is actually going to be fruitful for people who are already research administrators and looking to develop and grow and maybe move into promotional opportunities and leadership roles there. But also, we think that there's enough in this presentation and hopefully the contributions of the panelists as they share their own journeys to help folks reflect on how, if they're not a research administrator now, there are a whole lot of transferable skills that come into play that can move that along. So here's how it's going to work. First, our esteemed panelists are going to introduce themselves and kind of give you a short summary of their own career journeys and pathways. Then I am going to swiftly move through some slides that I think are just meant to really set the mood and share some just basic information about transferable skills and how it seems to fit moving into the world of research administration. And then that's where my fun part starts. That's when I get to sort of ask the questions, and this group of panelists will kind of offer up their responses to help you along. But here's the thing, and this goes for the folks who are also joining us online. The whole idea of most of the questions that we're going to pose is meant to sort of provoke your questions. So this is going to be a very organic, we hope, free-form panel that will spark your thoughts and actually maybe bolster your courage to ask us that question that you've really been interested in about maybe yourself or someone you know. So that's how we're going to do this. And so without further ado, I am going to hand it off to my good friend and colleague, Melissa Carby, and then we'll go from there.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Melissa Carby. I am currently the Director of Research Administration for the College of Dentistry. I just started in this role May 1st.
Oh.
So it's a very new role to me. It is a complete reorg of our Office of Research in the dental school, so there's been a lot of fun with that. My career started at the university in 2001. I started in the health system and I was let go on my 89th day of my 90 days. I thought my world was over. I was, a mess. I was in my early 20s. I was then hired back in a research administration role at the Survey Research Center, which I think is now called Survey Research Operations. And I worked there for a few years, and I was part of a RIF that they had a few years ago. They RIF'd a lot of staff off. And then I got into academic research administration that wasn't tied to specific funding. And I just started my pathway there. I went to biostatistics, then I went to chemistry, then I went to the health system, then I took a brief 18-month hiatus and went to the Shared Services Center where I met Lynn and a bunch of great people out there. And I landed in the dental school as a research process manager. So that's been my pathway. Not every job that I've taken has been an upward trajectory. Some have been lateral. Some have come with no raise. So that's one thing to keep in mind is your career trajectory is not always up. It can be sometimes down. It's like a wave. So that's my best advice. So that's me. Here is Cathy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cathy Handyside, and I am the Assistant Director for Research Administration Systems in Information Technology Services here at the University of Michigan. I can honestly say that when I was growing up, I did not expect to be in IT or in research administration. I was actually going to be a television announcer. That did not pan out either. So I spent the first part of my career working in corporate America, working in 2 different telecommunications companies, and I did a lot of HR training and development and systems training and kind of worked my way into a very interesting path into IT systems project management and change management as we rolled out new IT systems for various things that we were doing at my company. And then my company got bought by another company, and I left because I did not like the new company. And I wallpapered for a year. And my mother was really upset because I went to college, and she thought that that was not an adequate career for somebody with a college degree. But I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I spent a lot of time trying to think about what skills do I have, what kind of work do I enjoy, and what would I like to do next. And I was still in that process when I came to the university, but I really kind of focused in on training and change management, and those were the things that I was most interested in. I started here in 2000 when we were introducing the Pathways system, and I've been pretty much in IT ever since. Sorry, my microphone's drooping there. See, that's why the television career did not work out. But I've been working in the ITS area, and I came to research administration in 2004 and helped with the e-research implementation, and have been doing that pretty much ever since. So, and I truly enjoy the research administration space.
Hand it off to our colleagues from Michigan State. Saving the best for last.
Hi everyone, my name is Heather Hazard. I actually used to work at U of M, but I guess I always say that my first research administration job was kind of my first real job after college, and where I worked for about 7 years at a very small nonprofit where we focused on community organizing about substance abuse prevention. And the reason I was doing prevention education, but I was helping with the budget, which was a federal grant, so I always say that's my first job in research administration. And then we lost our funding, and I was really sad. But I took the first job that was offered to me that happened to be at U of M, and it was at Umtree, actually, with Cathy Ostrowski. From there, I just got involved in research and grants and proposals and really liked it, and so I moved around the university for a while. I went to SRO, and I went to SNRE, which is something else now, C's, and then I took I think I'm getting the timeline wrong, but anyway, I took a brief hiatus from U of M. I went and worked for a large nonprofit, so that's kind of something I wanted to just mention is nonprofits relate really closely to higher education, especially around grant management. And I would, if anyone is looking, to make a career move, I encourage everyone to look in the nonprofit sector because it's good work and your skills are very transferable. And then I went back to U of M and went back to my same job at SRO, left and went back to SNRE, and then I left U of M altogether and went to Michigan State. Since I've been at Michigan State since 2015, I've had several different roles there. I've been recruited a couple times. I guess my biggest asset has been I've become known for going into a department that may be struggling financially, lack process and procedure, go in and kind of straighten it up and then move on. So my current job, though, is in a brand new research institute, so there was no cleanup needed, but a lot of development and setup, and anyway, so that's been my career. But thanks for having me.
And then Heather got to meet me through her most recent job. So my name is Erin Gorman. I work for Michigan State University. I started my career in research admin 14 years ago, almost to the week. I got married and had to find a job. That's really elaborate and exciting, but my husband said we're living in Kentucky, so you got to find a job. So I was working for Consumers Energy for about 8 years while I was going to school, and the first job that came up was in research admin. It was half the pay. It was not glamorous at all. It was an entry-level post-award position in central office, but it was the only thing I could find. I did go into it just with an open mind, and I would say that's probably my number one thing to keep in mind when looking at research admin, because it isn't something that most people go to college and think, when I get out, I'm going to be a research administrator. In 8 months, I was promoted twice. I think they realized I might have had a little more to offer than just invoicing. So I ended up actually taking a leap of faith and accepting the indirect cost proposal job and the cost accounting manager position. So I did the University of Kentucky's F&A proposal. Michigan State needed that done a few years later, and Michigan was home for me. So that brought us back to MSU. I did their proposal and worked in the combined pre- and post-award office for a year while I did that. Started to learn pre-award a little bit, and then once I turned that proposal in, I was ready to get out into the college department level administration, so I took a position in the College of Human Medicine, and also started doing consulting work on the side, doing indirect cost proposals at other universities. So in the last year, I worked at Georgetown, the University of Utah, and Michigan State, because I really know how to have fun, and I use my vacation time to work. But it actually is, I never imagined probably that I would see or do all the things that I have when I took on my very first, entry-level research administration job. And I think I'm kind of proof that really the sky's the limit in terms of research admin. If you really want to put the time and effort in, I think it's a pretty high turnover career in general, but it doesn't really need to be. There's a lot you can do, and I think most people are willing to offer different opportunities for people who want to stay in research admin. So thanks for having me.
Thank you all so much. So it's so interesting that some of the folks on the panel were reflecting on how they happened into this profession. And those of you who are working in research administration now know this to be true. You don't talk about it as what you want to be when you grow up. It's very often that accidental profession that you kind of roll into, and one that people kind of morph into from other jobs. So what does it involve? I mean, we've got pre-award, we've got post-award, and actually there are other sort of subtopics there: regulatory compliance, budget preparation. There are a whole melee of tasks, as you can see, related to research administration, and yeah, that's the job. But it's actually so much more, right? Being successful in this university and actually building careers like the folks on the panel really involves kind of these skills that you bring to the table, your work behavior skills, and then your aptitude to handle things that will really enable your success if you're considering that kind of career, or if you're in it and you're looking to move on up. First of all, no matter what level you're at, you're definitely going to be that go-to business partner to investigators, or at least they're going to be relying on you to be that. You're going to have to be thinking about how you're going to manage a project, and the project could be your mini project. It could be the proposal, or it could be a big project that involves many aspects of a sponsored project. You're going to have to learn and grow to understand such things as staffing, regulatory requirements. People that start out in purchasing tend to begin using the skills for this kind of career. Dealing with equipment, maybe working in lab management, an ability to kind of create reports, status reports for some activity that's underway, or just a status report in accounting showing how a financial element is working. Things related to financial analysis, and with all that, absolutely planning. Really, what it's really about, and this is how people move into this job because they know that they end up having these skills, gifts, and attributes. You end up building a career knowing that you're the valued member of a team who notices when something needs to happen, or it just needs to be done. You're actually the ever-present person who is mindful of deadlines, protocols, requirements. You're the individual who is on the side, who's not forgetting the details, and sort of makes a difference with sponsors for accountability. So, we're moving into kind of the technical skills for the job, the educational requirements, those things you train on. But honestly, being good at it is so much more than the technical skills. So, I call this happy knowledge and skill inflows. What are the kinds of things that maybe you've done in your current job or led you to your current research administrative position that really are beneficial in growing in this field? For instance, if you know how people are hired, what if you know how payroll works? Maybe you know something about formal project management, Gantt charts, etc. You have the juggling act gift. You know it's a gift for you, it's a capability for you to take financial documentation, even if it's complex, and really analyze it, read it, build those things. Maybe there are some Excel wizards here. You have that juggling act gift, and you can stay on top of multiple deadlines. And this one's very important, especially within an academic environment. How to write or share a good, action-getting, yet diplomatic and humble, deferential message when something is needed now, right? Begging, right? Also, how to communicate between several groups to enable convergence to a common goal. I mean, more and more and more, working in the pre-award zone and even post-award management, you're talking about someone who would be doing the research administrative job who's going to be doing it alongside you for a big partnered project somewhere else in another unit of this university, or even, say, Michigan State and the University of Michigan, or with several subcontractors, whether they're industry or whatever. So really there's this, really broad set of happy knowledge and skill inflows that other occupations prepare you in a way to become a great research administrator. Carrying on, able to account for research source utilization, not just financially, but visually, a data person, someone who can visually describe what's going on with financial or other information with a project. What is considered valid documentation? Someone who knows what would be an important document to retain and how long. Honestly, I think it's really important for people who flourish in this zone to have kind of a fearlessness and an inner desire to constantly build capacity learning technical skills. Again, how to beg, right? I put it in there like the long-winded multiple word way, and then just how to beg. Also, and these are really important with the stewardship function that is implied in, especially as you grow in leadership in the research administrative zone. How to respect the views of scientific folk, but hold your ground on ethical issues of stewardship. And maybe holding your ground is difficult, but moving it up to someone that can help you hold your ground if needed. How to convey as diplomatically as possible what is needed for something to actually be done the right way, not the sloppy way, not the haphazard way. Knowing when to oblige, when to object, again, with a certain amount of EQ, finesse, and diplomacy. So, I didn't share my journey, so let's talk about some other examples of the RA destiny, because nobody grows up saying, hey, I'm going to be a research administrator when I grow up. Myself, I was working my way through college as a church secretary, and I was actually meant to be an English literature and typing teacher. I had a minor in business education, which at that time business education was typing, all right? I did not get a teaching job. So I ended up being a research secretary, honestly, in what is now Michigan Medicine. At that time, for the Department of Psychiatry, I was a research secretary too. And from there, I kind of, I had promotional desires. I definitely needed money. Those skill sets that are gleaned from trying to be a teacher, learning to be a teacher, being educated to be a teacher, and of course the clerical work, really helped me to kind of get into the grant accountant zone in the Department of Mathematics, mainly NSF grants. That was pure post-award. And then move into the College of Engineering in a lab administrator role. And from there, I've kind of moved into different departments, each with its own personality, each with its own level of complexity, but each of them has Number one, maintained, even at a department administrator level, attention to the research administrative atmosphere and architecture in the university, because stewardship is important and research is important as part of the mission in most every academic unit, if not all of them. So that's me, That's how my career trajectory went. And so there's one example of an RA destiny. I know that Cathy shared with you her own sort of move to different roles. Take, for instance, David Mulder. He was an IT analyst. Now, we made reference to data, technical skills, then a senior manager, and now the RA training manager. So everything that we do, and we've done a whole lot in these last few years in research administrative training and development, that's how he has evolved into leading all that and helping us all develop that. So here's another person who probably did not think, wow, research administration is the place I need to be. But actually there are lots of jobs within the university that can take that segue. What if you're working in the world of facilities? And you're working with facilities and you get involved in really analyzing the billings and the contracts. And so you find yourself managing financial stuff. You evolve into a financial manager and then a research manager. I think Daniel Beard has gone on to another organization outside the university, but that was his track when he was working at the University of Michigan. So here's the thing. There are many professions that have some tentacles that could reach into research administration. Okay, so we've kind of talked about these transferable skills. I want to just give a little more lip service, and we're nearly done with the slides because they're meant to provoke conversation. I want to kind of go into not just the skills that flow in, the happy inflows, but what makes someone excellent at it. And we talked a little bit about that, but I'm going to talk a little more. Personality traits, work behaviors, superb follow-up and organizational skills, accountable to authority, resilience, capable of juggling. Before the word resilience became popular, one of my bosses when I was a lab administrator said to me, you know what I like the most about you? And I said, what? And he says, you're durable. Resilience. Let me tell you, with the pace of change in the university, in the world, you need to be durable. So if you're durable, this might be the field for you. You can grow in this field with a measure of durability. Not easily shook, calm under fire. Now, in research administration, there is a certain amount of sometimes deadline-oriented angst, but capable of pushing back a little and stopping yourself, recalibrating to achieve what needs to be done now, and being that person that inspires others to participate in the process so that you all achieve the goal, whether that's a proposal, whatever it is. Also, an proactive solution seeker. And I think sometimes this doesn't get as much dialogue when people are talking about their capacity to be a research administrator, because people tend to be tentative. But if you are that person that is just really inwardly seeking to be that solution finder and problem solver, you have opportunity in this field. And again, dedicated, firmly reliable, can find a way to make it happen, which honestly often involves sacrifice. It says not for the 8 to 5 person. You can work 8 to 5 and be successful in research. I would say as you grow into research administration, I do believe you'll find work-life balance, but you might need to persuade some flexibility with that because of the needs of what you're trying to achieve. And we'll talk more about that with the question set we're about to embark on. And then flexible, capable of reacting to things that happen suddenly. All right, so look at this. Is this called a Wordle? So here are some of these key attributes. And if this is you, the University of Michigan definitely has a very competitive zone now for research administrative jobs. And those of you who are already in sort of maybe beginning level or first research administrative jobs, continuing to cultivate these skills can do nothing but make your life more promotable in the future. All right. And some of the panelists touched on this, and I like that they shared the little exit ramps that they took off the career pathway, because it's never a straight up trajectory. I mean, I shouldn't say it's never, sometimes it is. But honestly, sometimes it's pretty jagged. And it's really important, especially as we look at these transferable skills, that you actively consider in your own mind, what are the gaps to really making it happen for me? You should not be afraid of the lateral move. You know, think about where you're at in this skills development and where you need to go, and think about the lateral move. For instance, if you're doing payroll and timekeeping, accounting or finance, human resources, those are inflow administrative categories. If you are in human resources, get into accounting or finance. You know, there's this zone of skills in the administrative stools that all flow into research administration. Try to get a job where there's some breadth there, even if it's just putting your toe in the water. So seek out your next step laterally if you need to, and do not be afraid to ask for more responsibility. Let's say you don't see the lateral, or you've tried to get a lateral move, and you're competing against people who are already doing something similar in that zone. Don't be afraid to talk to your boss about some job enlargement, just so you can get your toe in that water. Let them know that you're really earnest and excited to grow in this field. All right, so now we get to the good part. These are the dialogue provoking questions, which means you folks that are out there in computer land, and also you folks that are right here, we're going to ask the questions, and then as they spark some thought or additional questions from you, go ahead and raise your hand or type in the question, and our panelists are going to share what they really think. First, so I tried to pick questions that people don't usually ask. Some of them they do usually ask, but this one is important to me for them to share. So we all have skills, gifts, abilities, capabilities. But to be a research administrator, the breadth is so big. What skill do you regularly use in your work or have used in one of your positions that actually did not come naturally to you? You weren't particularly gifted. You had to cultivate it. You had to seek training for it. You had to practice and build to develop it. And who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
I don't know if this is technically a skill. Some people are really skilled at it, but delegating, there are some people who delegate everything. I struggled with that in my current position is a shared services pre-award model. So if you don't learn to delegate and do it quickly and do it well, it can all blow up in your face. So I think learning to delegate at a little bit higher level position is probably the number one thing that didn't come naturally to me that I really had to work on. But I also would say, in general, the F&A proposal was completely terrifying. So it was, I am naturally good with numbers, but I'm not officially an accountant, and I did a lot of finance and accounting work, but there's no written way to do an F&A proposal, and it's honestly a monumental task at any university, and you spend over a year doing it. So I would say probably taking on something I knew nothing about and just kind of trusting that I would figure it out and I would have the resources at my discretion to be able to get through it was the biggest thing. So at a higher level, probably delegation, but sort of in that lower or mid-level, just sort of trusting that I had what it took to get it done. I just had to figure out how to get there.
I think for me, the skill that I struggle with even today is time management. I am a procrastinator. I am the person that has a 20-page paper due on Friday, and maybe I'll start thinking about writing it today. Like, that is me in school. That's how I went through school, just totally last-minute procrastination. Research administration does not allow for procrastination, especially on the pre-award side. You cannot procrastinate. You have a deadline that you have to meet. So a lot of my jobs in research administration have been post-award because there is some latitude for some procrastination with post-award. But I have to keep reminding myself of time management. I have when I was in lower positions taken some time management classes. I try to use task management software to help me keep on task to create a to-do list. So that's something that actually today I still struggle with. Like,
But Melissa, I have a follow-up question.
With regard to your
post-board work and this element of procrastination, are you one of those miraculous just-in-time deliverers? Because that is a gift. We don't have a label for it. I will try to think of one.
I think I used to be. I think at the level I'm at now, I can't do that because
So you
leadership
deliberately manage your time
Yes,
now
yes.
and discipline yourself.
Yes, definitely.
Well, I kind of have two. One is an actual skill and one is just, I guess, a life skill. But I'm not by nature detail-oriented at all. And I like to think in the clouds. I like to come up with ideas, and then someone else can figure out how to actually implement it. But as you probably all know, you have to be detail-oriented, especially in post-award and in pre-award, so that took me a lot of practice. I'm grateful now that I finally have gotten in a role where I can set people for that, so I can do more big picture thinking. But you still have to be detail-oriented in the scope of being a manager, right? So being a good supervisor, manager, leader, you need to pay attention to the details because that is what can make or break your team. So that has taken me some work. And the other thing that I used to think was an asset in my personality was being brutally honest. And when I started working with faculty, I learned that's maybe not the best way to communicate. Anyone who knows me in my personal life knows that I'm always brutally honest. But at work, I've had to learn to be direct, but with kindness and tact. And that has probably done me more favors than a lot of actual physical skills that I've gained over the years. But because there's so many times where you have to, I don't like to say no ever, and I hardly do, but when you have to kind of say no, you have to do it directly, but you'd never kind of want to give a faculty member specifically any reason to think that they have anything to be blamed for. So, yeah, direct with kindness and tact.
So I was hoping to avoid this one, but okay. I think the thing, I would actually echo a lot of my colleagues' comments here, but I would say the one other thing is I'm not particularly fond of having to confront employees when they're not doing something that they want to do. It's my least favorite thing to do, but you have to do it. And I finally was able to reframe it for myself to say I would rather, by confronting a single employee who's doing something, I'm actually helping 23 other employees who all see that behavior and don't want it in their team. And so that has helped me kind of get past my own personal difficulty with that task. So that would be the one I would share.
like, how many hours do you actually work?
Each week. Not that it's a set standard, but what do you believe is your usual contribution? And also, obviously, even if it's more than 40, you've elected to be where you're at.
What strategies
Do you use to maintain that work-life balance? We know that's important in maintaining mental health and other sort of health.
Right now, I'm working a strict 40-hour a week because if I didn't, I would probably lose all my relationships outside of work. I'm always thinking about my new position, how I'm going to change things, so I'm always thinking about it. I'll wake up thinking about it, I'll go to bed thinking about it, I'll wash my hair in the shower, and I'm thinking about it. So I have had to set very clear, strict boundaries. I was very open and honest with my boss and said, I will not be answering emails after work. When I go on vacation, I unplug. I take email off my phone. If you reach out to me, unless it's an emergency, I'm not going to respond. And I found that being upfront about that before I even took the position helped me greatly because I set my boundary. And so I think it's important to be open and honest with yourself and set your boundaries. If you feel like work is overtaking your life, you need to do a reflection and make sure that you're able to maintain your relationships with your children, with your spouses, with your family, because it can really overtake. Now, that's not to say that I don't work more than 40 hours a week in a given week. It really is, I balance my workload effectively. And so when I was just doing research process managing, I may have filled in to do some proposals or said, you know, you guys go home, I'll take care of this, I'll make sure it gets through the system, because I also want my employees to have that work-life balance, and given in a deadline-driven environment, it can sometimes be a little bit difficult. So just set your boundaries early.
Okay. So interestingly enough, I don't work 40 hours. I probably work 45 to 50. And I have kind of a mental practice of I don't like to take work home, and I do not like to work on the weekend. So if I really have something that I have to get done, I will stay late and get it done before I leave the office. But I try when I go home to not be thinking about work. Now, that's kind of hard to do sometimes, and to Melissa's point, that's kind of the, how am I going to figure that out? Well, I'll think about that in the morning, but so I really do try to do that, and I agree with Melissa's point that it really does help to give yourself, I think you're a more effective employee when you have rest and you have time to think, and there's always a crisis, right? I mean, one of my favorite things I tell my staff all the time is like, just because there's a lot of rocks on the ground doesn't mean the sky is falling. You got to take one, figure out how to solve it, then move on to the next one, and you're better able to handle them whenever you have a foundation where you've rested, you're not worrying about stuff at home and whatnot. So that would be my advice. I know it's not always possible.
Maybe I'm an anomaly, but I really have no idea how many hours I work. It's way more than 40. I hope it's less than 80. But back to me not being a detail-oriented person, I also am not a clock watcher. So where these two clearly have much better work-life balance, I work a lot and at home a lot. But I think it really depends on the position you find yourself in, which I think what makes research administration so unique is because this job particularly, you know, the university has invested tens of millions of dollars into a brand new research institute, and it has to succeed. So I feel like that has warranted me, you know, many late nights and early mornings and weekends and whatnot. However, you know, depending on the situation you're in, I feel like that's also affords me great latitude and flexibility, which I like because I have an hour commute. So if I need to work from home, I can. If I need to take the day off, I can, and I don't have to feel guilty necessarily because I have no doubts about what my effort has been. I hope someday that I will be able to be a little bit more rigid with, you know, the hours I work. I honestly don't know if that's really my personality though, but I will echo that making sure you can, if you are in a position, you know, similar to I, where you are working an exorbitant amount of hours, that you do remember you have people outside of work that get frankly annoyed when you're always working. So, and you know, we all know this, there's science to prove it, that good relationships at home make you a better employee and all of that stuff. So, yeah.
I don't work as much as Heather.
I would say I generally try to keep my workload at 45 hours a week or less. I do a lot of NIH, though, which is, as you know, cyclical, although the number of RFAs that are being released that are just due randomly seems to be picking up. So I feel like the cycle never ends with NIH a little bit, but definitely have our heavier times in June and July and October and November and February and March. So certainly more hours are going into my day at that time, but I would say, like, backing up 20 years, my passion was work-life balance. My master's degree is in all about flexible schedules and work-life balance, I think before it was even a thing, so I'm a little bit of a trendsetter maybe. But I literally worked at home in like 2000 with dial-up internet and have never, ever, ever, not once, worked a traditional 8-to-5 schedule in any job that I've ever had. So I value that personally probably more than my actual paycheck, and I make sure that whoever works with me or for me or however you want to put it, whoever is on my team has that same flexibility. Lucky for us, research admin is like an all hours of the day and night thing, and you really can do a lot at home. I have young kids. I like to take them to school, and I like to pick them up, and there's no reason that I can't. So I work every day from 4:30 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. at home. And then I get everybody up and get them off to school, and I head into the office for another part of my day, which is the bigger chunk of the day. And then I come home and I pick them up most days, and I get back on the computer and work for a while. And they recognize that that's something that I can do because I have the flexibility, so they understand that I need to work more when I get home, and that I'm not just going to walk in the door and make dinner, for example, right away. But it is really important. I have an individual whose homeland is China, and she wants to go home every year for a month. So she goes for a month, and we work out her workload, and we cover her, and that's her vacation time, and she saves it for that, and so we do it. And same with another employee I have. She has a cabin up north and likes to spend a lot of time in the summer there. So we work really hard to have work-life balance, and it makes them want to work for that hour in the evening or that hour on the weekend to quickly resolve something for a faculty member who is definitely working all weekend on their proposal. So up front, we sort of recognize that it's not an 8-to-5 job when we're hiring, and we sort of relay that. It's not to say we wouldn't allow an 8-to-5 if that's what somebody wants to work, but the general expectation is that we're flexible, so they need to be flexible, and it's worked out pretty well for us so far.
All right. We want to make sure that we leave some time at the end just for free-form questions. Honestly, I think that
You might want to trust us with this.
but even if you have a career field that you're in and you're looking for that segue, go ahead and lay that on us at the end. I think with our group we can provide some practical guidance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do these questions in twosies and threesies now. And hopefully they'll pick the hard one, because that's a work principle that I always try to do because I'm a procrastinator. Do the hardest thing first. All right? First, describe a mistake you have made on the job and how you handled it. I mean, I think it's really important to be fearless about internally analyzing your mistakes and overcoming them. What attribute, behavior, work quality do you look hard for when you're hiring? Each of these folks now is in a supervisorial role, so that they are looking for someone with that right capability for these jobs. What do they look for? When do they know they've recognized it? And what technical skills do you see as most important in the growing research administrative field? So you can answer these sort of in a bucket with multiple thoughts, or pick one. Who's going first? All right.
I'm just going to answer that one,
I
and
like
then they
that.
can talk about the other
Be
one.
fearless.
So it was kind of a combo mistake, but anybody who does NIH proposals knows about the $500,000 detailed budget limit. It's really $499,000 and whatever, $49999. So I had an employee who, it happened to be the one that was going to China. She wrapped up this beautiful proposal and left, but she turned it in with $500,000 per year flat each year, and it went through everybody, including myself, so I take on that mistake personally, and our central office. So it got kicked out of grants.gov a couple days later because it was over the limit and there was no pre-approval from the program officer. So we had to go to the faculty member and explain our mistake. And I guess just how we handled it, that's exactly what we did. We just right away dropped everything to find the solution, to notify central contracts and grants, to let the faculty member know that we were working on it. We spoke to the scientific review officer, let them know it was an honest mistake by $5. Like, it was not intended to, to go over the limit. And fortunately, they gave us an incredible amount of grace. They answered us really quickly. They took care of it. They forwarded it on for review, and the faculty member, we just kind of had to assure him that, we certainly would never make that mistake again. But I think just the swift handling of anything and the immediate calling of anybody that could possibly help remedy the situation, because we certainly couldn't do anything about it, was the best avenue. Rather than pointing fingers, it was totally our oversight, totally our fault, and we just moved forward with it. And he was very gracious in his reaction. So.
Well, I guess I'm going to answer in kind of a bucket, because my answers are kind of short. I've made so many mistakes, I could not pick just one, honestly, and lots of big ones. And the only thing I can say about that is own it and try to fix it. And don't place blame anywhere else. Take it on, you did it, and that will get you a lot of credibility, actually, as long as you're not doing it every day. But yeah, so just own it, eat some crow, move on. Don't lose sleep over it. When I hire mostly for fit in my team, and as long as the person, has some skills and seems intelligent, I would rather train on specific skills. But to me, if you aren't going to fit in my team, it really doesn't matter how good of a budget you can put together or any of that stuff. I would rather train the skill and hire for fit. So that's my answer on that.
Yes. What type of personality trait would not fit well on your team? Just name one.
Drama. Someone who's very dramatic.
Yep.
Yeah. And really someone who's just not genuine, and I can always kind of sense that. I have a decent sense of someone's personality, but I want someone who can be honest, who can be humble, and, who can just jump in and work together. Technical skill, I think, is creativity. I think there's so much gray area in research administration and so many different ways to go about doing something that, I don't know, kind of doesn't exist in a lot of other fields. I really think the more creative you are, the more sellable you'll be as an employee, and it really helps the field of research administration, so we can really find the best way to go about doing things, which in a lot of areas in this job we still, I don't think, quite know yet.
So I would echo Heather's answer to the biggest mistake. I tried to think about one last night, and I couldn't single out one, so I agree with that. On the idea of what skills or what do I look for hard in hiring, I just kind of want to answer this in a little bit of a different way. So my earlier career, I spent some time in the HR world, and honestly, there are a set of skills that almost every single employee needs to have. It doesn't matter what your discipline is. I would say 75 to 80% of your ability to be a good employee is, are you able to get along with other people and build relationships? Are you able to solve problems creatively? Are you able to make decisions and get things executed? And so that's why there's so much transferable skill in this genre. And I really do want to encourage you that it doesn't matter what you do today. If you can convince somebody that you can get things done and you can learn, that you can work well with others, those are the things that I think really sell you. And a lot of jobs you'll learn. I mean, the technical functional part of it is not something that's that, I mean, we're not going to be brain surgeons tomorrow. That you probably need some schooling on. But I think in general, a lot of our work falls into those basic skills and your ability to get along with other people. So, which I kind of think fits with fit. So.
What they all said. But honestly, I hire for fit more than skill. I need to make sure that the team will get along. They're in a very close environment where they're sitting on top of each other. As you know, here, space at the dental school, space at the University of Michigan, you either have beautiful space like this nice space here, or you live in the dental school, which is built in the 1900s. So, and we're starting a renovation. We're breaking ground in October. So I'm also, when we're hiring right now, we're saying, how do you deal with disruption? How do you deal with construction noise? Because it's going to happen. And as far as making like mistakes and things like that, I have found be self-aware and be humble. Those are the two things that I can say is so important, is your self-awareness of your limitations and being humble when you do make a mistake and being honest about it.
All right, so I'm going to share these last set of questions. Pick one.
And or not.
And then we want to make sure we leave at least 7 minutes for these folks to offer up their questions, their thoughts, their own observations, to test us on what we think about any situation they'd like to share. So that last question, I'm just going to read it and then move on. In hindsight, as you think about your career pathway and journey thus far, were there any seize the moment opportunities? Because sometimes happenstance plays a big part, or,
Some of us would say.
good Lord, but happenstance plays a big part in opportunities that come your way. If you can share any serendipity there that you recall, that's great. And then thinking about the career growth of others, and this kind of plays back to the technical skills, and maybe even, handling mistakes or what would be a good fit. Can you name one work behavior that you think could be most damaging for someone's career? And then share your expertise, if at all, and how people can maybe come out of their comfort zone to network if they're looking to grow in this field. And then, again, this had to do with work-life balance, but any additional thoughts on the whole element of how you juggle in a job like this. So quick, pick one or pick some random thoughts, and then we're going to open it up to the group.
I'll answer the seize the moment question. That happened to me. I got onto a project that was looking at business process inside of the medical school years and years ago. It involved working with IT, working with the upper leadership of the medical campus. And I can't tell you how many doors that project opened up for me. So if you ever have an opportunity to work on a project with a diverse group of individuals, seize it and take it. It will add to your workload. It will be frustrating. You will probably go home and cry in your soup like I did. What am I doing to myself? Why am I doing this? But it has paid tenfold. So seize the opportunity wherever you can.
I have a quick one on the networking piece, and it's actually maybe less for a networking format like this, but I would say volunteer for some committees. The RAC organization has lots of committees as well as lots of subcommittees, and I think it's a great way to meet people from other departments. And it's also a way to further your career development. And usually your supervisors are usually willing to allow you to spend the couple of hours that it might take for you to participate in that work.
So Cathy,
So RAC is the Research Administration Advisory Council, and you can find out more information about that on the Research website or the ORSP website.
by emailing navigate-research@umich.edu.
As if it's on the screen behind me.
Yeah, I wanted to take that opportunity. to
And
interject
there's
that.
a training committee and a communications committee and a metrics or reporting committee, as well as a process committee. And all of those committees also have subcommittees. So if there's something that sounds sort of interesting, it's totally worth checking it out and seeing if maybe you could lend your talents and meet some people and learn a bit yourself.
All right, we really need to finish this up in 1 minute because this is going to turn off at 1, so let's give the audience a chance to ask some questions. Oh, or last final thoughts.
Oh, I was just going to say rigidity will kill your career here. And go to a conference like SRA or NCURA by yourself. Don't go with coworkers. Try to go to one by yourself and meet new people.
Go Go ahead. I'll if there aren't questions, I'll
answer my serendipity moment. But if there are questions,
Oh, we
please
want to
ask.
hear the serendipity.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it was taking the F&A proposal on.
terrified, but I took that, and I would say it gave me the biggest overall vision of how research works in the university, and I still work with the consultants that worked with me 10 years ago on it or more. So it really was relationship building for me, but also big picture of how any university really runs. It wasn't so pigeonholed into research itself. So that was really the moment for me.
So we're at a time where I understand for you folks that are joining us in computer land, this is going to shut down at exactly 1. But do not forget that we will answer any questions you have either independently or if you email them to David. All of us, we love to work with folks all around the university and outside of our university. So please don't forget, even after the next 5 minutes, that we're a resource to you. So with that, does anyone have any questions for us before the 1 o'clock hour hits? Come on. You came here for a reason. You're interested in your RA career. What's top of mind for you in terms of growth and development?
Do any of you have advice to research administrators, particularly newer ones, on how to achieve a level of fearlessness and confidence when you're faced with the reality of deadlines, overspending, underspending?
So I teach this in Navigate. Don't avoid it. The only way out is through. And there's one more. Does someone remember? There's one more principle. But don't avoid the problem, and the only way out is through. You have to practice that courage.
Any other thoughts?
I don't know your background, but I would say get familiar with terms and conditions inside and out for every award you manage. I've had faculty tell me audits are ridiculous and I'm crazy, and of course we're never going to be audited. But as soon as I send them the audit findings for major research institutions, then they're like, oh, she kind of knows what she's talking about. So know the subject matter. Take the time to read it. Read uniform guidance if that's what you need to read. Read the terms and conditions. Get familiar with the NIH costing policy, and that's the kind of thing that has really helped me. It's super boring, but if you're on a flight or whatever, I remember reading A21 back and forth. I think I won a game show contest one time because I read it. It's a pain in the neck to read that stuff, but it's your armor for when your faculty are kind of pushing back, and that's where I think you gain your confidence.
I would like to add one thing.
Your leadership will no doubt honor you.
There too. And trust me, they'll be grateful as you grow in independence and working with your customers, because that means they're the ones that are freed up from doing it, right? And that's how the system's meant to work. Talk to your leadership, your supervisors, about how they can work with you to make sure you're approaching situations the right way, and also alongside that, use people that you meet at Lunch and Learns to email them and say, hey, can we talk about a situation that I'm undergoing? How would you approach it? All of those things are open. There is a huge, the research administrative community at U of M has just exploded over the last 10 years, and there are so many experts. I know that your supervisors will want to be engaged with you. They appreciate that. But they also will probably appreciate that you are willing to reach out and get other solutions from a community of experts.
I would just echo, use your network. They can be a lifesaver. So make a network, use your network. And you know what? Just about any mistake, honestly, can be fixed. I can think of very, very few mistakes I've made that were, I don't even know if I can think of any, actually. Everything can be fixed. So there's not any need to really be that fearful. Sure, you might screw up and you might need to put in some extra time to fix something, but that's how you learn. So that's my last piece of advice is anything can be fixed for the most part.
One thing that can delay the fixing of a mistake if it's hidden.
That's true.
So muster up the guts and lay it out there. Your bosses and your units will appreciate that.
Other questions?
Who has an interesting career that is not exactly in your mind, an easy move to research administration, wondering what kind of segues might be interesting there? Anyone? You're a quiet group.
I have a question sort of along those lines for Aaron, that you made the leap from sort of what we think of as the day-to-day machine of research administration in pre-award and post-award to working on the F&A proposal project. What do you think allowed you to make that jump, and what would you recommend as far as making that kind of shift from sort of the bread and butter of research administration into something that's more special projects related?
Well, there's always a need for research administrators, so you'll always have something to come back to. And often schools do that. They pull you off, do the F&A proposal, then you go back to doing something else. For me, it was service centers and a host of other things. I would say take the opportunity for special projects, as she mentioned. It's the opportunity to really gain a knowledge base that other people don't have. I still get calls from Office of Planning and Budget out in the college. Dave Bialik will call me and say, "What, is this true about the F&A or whatever?" Because I'm probably the most knowledgeable at the university about it still, and I haven't done it in 7 years. But when you have the opportunity to go do something like that, you kind of can't worry about getting back into the day-to-day. That will always be there. There is no shortage of opportunity for day-to-day research admin, I would say, at any school in the U.S. Everybody needs somebody who understands what we do. It's just there aren't enough of us.
Yeah, it's a very competitive field right now. Hiring for a vacancy is,
I don't want to say cutthroat, but we're all
fighting for the awesome ones, I'll tell you that. So it's past 1. I want to thank everyone for coming, especially those of you who are online. I don't know if you're cut off already or not, but we appreciate you. And thank you all for coming. Some of us will be around after this. Thank you so much for participating. And I feel like it was a pretty good and interesting session, and I appreciate you willing to volunteer for this. Thank you.